$10 billion. That is what the canned sardine industry generates every year. 10 billion. And it all starts with a fish that fits in the palm of your hand. But that is not the most impressive part. The most impressive part is this. In Brazil, sardines account for 75% of the income of the entire fishing industry, 3/4, and more than 30,000 jobs depend directly on this fish. A single fish supports the fishing economy of an entire country. And yet, most people look at a can of sardines as something simple, cheap, insignificant. Today, I am going to show you the truth about what is behind that can. From the sonar that searches for schools in the darkness of the ocean, to the autoclave that turns something that decomposes in hours into a food that lasts for years. When you finish this video, I assure you that you will never look at a can of sardines the same way again. First, the numbers. Because when you see the real scale of this industry, your perception changes completely. Every year, more than 3.5 million tons of sardines are caught worldwide. 3.5 million tons of a fish that measures 15 centimeters. To give you an idea of the scale, that equals more than 50 billion individual sardines caught every year. 50 billion. The North Atlantic off the coasts of Portugal, Spain, and Morocco is one of the most productive areas. The cold currents that rise from the bottom bring nutrients that feed giant clouds of plankton. And plankton is the sardine's banquet. But the sardine does not hunt. It does not chase prey. It filters water. It opens its mouth, moves forward in a group, and lets millions of microscopic particles enter, get filtered, and turn into fat, muscle, and life. It is a mechanism so simple that it seems fragile, but in that apparent fragility lies its strength. The sardine is the link that connects the smallest thing in the ocean with the largest. It connects microscopic plankton with tuna, dolphins, whales, sharks, and seabirds. Without sardines, that food chain collapses. It is not an exaggeration. Marine biologists call it a key fish. If it disappears, the entire ecosystem that depends on it starts to shake. And not only nature depends on it. In coastal towns of Portugal, for example, for generations the calendar was not marked by months, but by the arrival of the sardines. With them came work at sea, on the docks, and in the canning factories. Entire cities were built around this fish. That is real economic power. Now comes the part that almost nobody sees. How a school of sardines is found in the middle of the ocean. When a boat leaves the port, it does not sail aimlessly hoping to get lucky. On board, it carries a cabin that looks like a mixture of an airplane cockpit and a military control center. Screens that show maps of the seabed, water temperature graphs, records of fish school movements from previous seasons. The captain does not guess where the sardines are. He interprets data. The key tool is sonar. This equipment sends sound pulses toward the bottom and measures the echo that comes back. A rock reflects one pattern. A school of fish reflects a completely different one. With experience, those patterns are read as if they were letters. A school of sardines appears on the sonar as a dense, homogeneous, relatively shallow mass that moves in a coordinated way. The boat adjusts course and speed to position itself in the exact spot. If it approaches badly, the school disperses and the opportunity is lost. If it arrives at the right angle, the maneuver can be perfect. And here comes a fact that few people know. A single school of sardines can contain more than 10 million individuals, 10 million fish moving like a single organism, changing direction in thousandths of a second. From the air, it looks like a silver stain that deforms and recomposes without stopping. From below, it is pure energy. When the captain decides that the time has come, he gives the signal that triggers the whole operation. At the stern of the boat, a huge purse seine net, folded like a sleeping snake, begins to slide into the sea. At the same time, an auxiliary boat takes one end of the net and traces a circle around the school. From the air, it would be like seeing a compass drawing a ring of nylon and floats around a silver cloud. When the circle closes, The technical detail that gives this net its name comes into play. On the lower edge, it carries a series of rings through which a steel cable passes. By pulling that cable, the bottom of the circle closes as if it were a gigantic bag. The school no longer has a way out downward. It is trapped. And here begins a race against time, because the sardine is a fish very rich in fat, and that fat oxidizes quickly. Every minute that passes between capture and refrigeration is a minute of quality loss. That is why, instead of hauling up the whole net with cranes, as was done before, many modern fleets use special suction pumps. Large hoses are submerged inside the seine, and with the help of seawater circulating at high speed, they gently suck up the sardines and move them directly into the refrigerated holds of the boat. These holds are not simple storage holes. They are insulated tanks where a mixture of seawater and ice is kept, creating a kind of cold soup in which the sardines float and cool down at the same time. The temperature drops quickly to values close to 0 degrees. Why is fast cooling so critical? Because of histamine. It is a substance that forms in poorly preserved fish and can cause serious health problems. The sooner cooling is achieved, the lower the risk. It is a race against the chemistry of the fish itself, and the fact that almost nobody knows. Each haul, each catch is recorded with exact time, GPS coordinates, water temperature, captured volume, and tank number. Traceability begins at sea, not in the factory. That information will remain associated with the batch of preserves that will come out weeks later. When the boat returns to port, the rhythm changes, but the urgency does not. Cranes, forklifts, conveyor belts, and workers take over. The holds are emptied by unloading water, ice, and fish into large receiving hoppers. From there, inclined belts carry the sardines toward the washing area. The objective is simple. Remove the excess ice, blood, and any residue from the boat. Showers of cold water fall from above while the sardines move forward. If the cold chain has been respected, the smell is clean, salty, like that of a port at dawn. After washing comes something that seems minor, but in the industry is critical: classification by size. A can with sardines of very different sizes looks careless. In addition, the cooking time and heat penetration are not the same for a small specimen as for a large one. An undercooked sardine is a food safety problem. An overcooked one loses texture and flavor. The sardines pass through classifiers with rollers or perforated drums. The smaller holes let the smaller sardines pass through. The larger ones retain the bigger ones. At the end of this section, each belt carries a different size grade. Only the fish that meet the strictest standards go to the premium canning lines. Those that do not go to the local market or to the fish meal and fish oil industry, which is another billion-dollar industry on its own. And now we enter the part that fascinates me the most: the transformation inside the factory. In the more artisanal lines, especially in Portugal and Spain, the scene looks like a human choreography. Dozens of workers, most of them women, with small knives and incredibly fast movements, repeat the same sequence at a speed that hypnotizes. They take the sardine. They cut off the head in a single motion. They slightly open the belly. They remove the viscera with the tip of the finger or the knife. They remove any dark remains, and they place the cleaned fish in perforated trays. Each person can process hundreds of sardines in an hour. Hundreds! Maintaining a precision that a machine would struggle to match on pieces so delicate. In highly automated lines, the logic is the same, but the tool changes. Specialized machines hold each sardine by the tail, make it move along a guide, and a blade adjusted to the size cuts off the head at the exact point. A second cut opens the abdominal cavity. Optical sensors check that the fish has been properly cleaned. If they detect remains, a pusher automatically removes it from the line. Once cleaned, the sardines pass to the stage that defines the final texture: pre-cooking. Unlike other canned fish that are cooked directly inside the can, in the case of sardines, it is very common for the flesh to be cooked first outside, on trays, and then packed. Why? Because this allows fat and water to drain, flavor to concentrate, and texture to set before sealing. There are three main methods. Steam cooking. The trays enter closed tunnels where jets of saturated steam envelop them for several minutes. The flesh changes color, the bones begin to soften, and part of the fat drains off. Baking in hot air tunnels. Powerful fans push hot air around the pieces, achieving a surface browning that consumers associate with a more intense flavor. And grills. The sardine receives a smoky touch that will be noticeable even months later when the can is opened. That smoky flavor you feel when you open certain premium cans does not come from an additive. It comes from a real grill in a real factory. After cooking, the trays come out to a cooling area. Fans and controlled air currents bring the temperature down to safe values so the fish can be handled without falling apart. Workers separate broken sardines, remove loose bones, clean remains. Only the pieces that meet the standard go on to the next phase. And here we reach the most iconic scene of the whole process: canning. The cans, still empty, shiny, aligned, move forward on a belt. On one side, piles of cooked sardines ready to go. Between both things, expert hands or automatic systems in charge of fitting one into the other. It may look like simply putting fish into a can, but there is a whole logic behind it. Counting the exact number of pieces, placing them in the right orientation, making the most of the space without crushing them. In premium products, canning is almost artisanal. Each sardine is placed manually, with the head facing the same side, forming orderly layers that when the consumer opens the lid, look like a perfect silver mosaic. There are Portuguese sardine cans that sell for $15, $20, even $30 a unit. $30 for a can of sardines. Because the presentation, the oil, the origin, and the story are worth as much as the product. Once inside, the sardine receives its travel companion. Some brands add light brine. Others opt for the classic olive oil that will soak into and protect the flesh throughout its shelf life. There are also versions in tomato sauce, with chili, with lemon slices, with bay leaf. Automatic dosers pour in the exact volume of liquid. Too little and the sardine dries out. Too much and the texture becomes soft. And now comes the most critical part of the whole process. The part that separates a safe preserve from a potentially dangerous one: sterilization. The can is sealed with a double hermetic seam. Specially designed rollers fold the edge of the can and the lid in several passes, forming a metal sandwich that combines layers of the body, the lid, and the internal lacquer. If this seam fails, even if everything else has been done perfectly, the product is ruined. With the cans sealed, they pass into large autoclaves, pressure chambers capable of raising the internal temperature to values that destroy resistant microorganisms, including Clostridium botulinum, one of the most dangerous bacteria in canned foods. Here, time and temperature are calibrated with millimetric precision. Too much intensity and the sardine dries out. The proteins break down. The texture becomes mealy. Too little and food safety is compromised. Inside the autoclave, hot water or steam circulates around the cans, while sensors constantly verify that all areas reach the required thermal value. At the same time, the internal pressure is controlled to prevent the cans from deforming. It is a sophisticated balance that defines the difference between a preserve that lasts months and one that can make someone sick. At the end of the cycle, the fish is fully cooked. The bones have reached a soft and edible texture, and the inside is a stable environment with practically no microbial activity. A properly processed can of sardines can last between 3 and 5 years without refrigeration. 5 years. A food that decomposes in hours, turned into something that lasts half a decade. But there is something that the most demanding factories know, and that few consumers know. Canned sardines improve with time. It is not a mistake. It is not marketing. It is chemistry. Many premium companies keep the cans in warehouses for weeks or even months before sending them to the market. Why? Because during that time, the oil, the flesh, and the seasonings interact inside the closed container. The flavors integrate. The texture softens. The result when someone finally opens that can is a rounder, deeper, more complex flavor. In Portugal, there is a culture of aged canned sardines, similar to that of wine. There are collectors who keep cans for years, and there are specialized shops where vintage cans are sold, with canning dates from 5, 10, even 15 years ago, at prices that exceed $50 per can. A multi-billion-dollar industry from a fish that measures 15 centimeters. Parallel to the canning process, the quality control department continues watching. From each batch, samples are taken and opened in the laboratory. The appearance is analyzed, color of the flesh, integrity of the pieces, distribution inside the can. The salt content, pH, and texture are measured with equipment that applies controlled force. Sensory tastings are carried out where trained panels describe aroma, flavor, and juiciness, and microbiological analyses are performed to confirm that what seemed safe in theory is also safe in practice. Only the cans that pass all these filters move on to the final zone, labeling and packaging. In a matter of seconds, labels wrap each container with the brand identity, the type of covering, the country of origin, the expiration date, and the lot number. Afterwards, the machines group the cans into packs, place them in cardboard boxes, and stack them on pallets that will end up in containers. From there, the journey returns to the sea, but in another way, merchant ships will take them to other continents, where canned sardines will become breakfast, a quick dinner, an ingredient in traditional recipes, or a lifesaver in a pantry. If we look at the whole journey from beginning to end, the sardine stops being a small and insignificant fish. It begins as a silver flash in the darkness of the ocean, detected by sonar waves. It is surrounded by a seine net that closes like a gigantic bag. It cools in seconds to stop the clock of chemistry. It travels to port. It is washed. It is classified. It is cleaned by hand or by machine with extraordinary precision. It is cooked by steam, in the oven, or on the grill. It is placed piece by piece inside a can. It is bathed in olive oil or tomato sauce. It is sealed hermetically. It is pressure sterilized to destroy any invisible threat. And then, silently, it matures for weeks inside its container, improving with each passing day. An industry worth more than $10 billion, more than 50 billion sardines caught every year, hundreds of thousands of jobs in dozens of countries, and all of that fits in a container just a few centimeters wide that you can open with one hand. The next time you take a can of sardines from the shelf, stop for a second. Think about everything it took for that fish to get there. And remember, you're not looking at a simple food. You're looking at the result of one of the most complex and fascinating industrial chains in the world. If something you saw today surprised you, leave it in the comments. What impacted you the most? Sonar capture, factory processing, sterilization, or the fact that sardines improve over time like wine? Subscribe and activate the bell, because on this channel we show the millionaire industries nobody tells you about. And if you want to keep watching agricultural and industrial processes at this level of detail, watch the video I am leaving for you right up here. See you in the next video.